And it just says recording in process.
Yes, I had to click on the thing so I could see your face again.
So that way I wasn't hidden.
Yeah.
And here we are. Welcome, darling. Welcome to this shit show. Isn't this
Finally.
amazing? Ah! So you lived. So what happened is you lived where I lived in our one Taco Bell town, and then it took you moving out of state in order to get onto the podcast, which we couldn't do in person due to COVID and then scheduling. And now it's like we just should have freaking zoomed in the first place, for Christ's sakes.
I know
Jeez.
it just felt awkward to me to Zoom when you were literally like half a mile away.
I know.
So it just made it awkward. But like this just kind of happened. I was like, I need to do that podcast with Monica. I need to do that podcast with Monica. And I was like, I have time this weekend. My wife and kids are out of town for the weekend. I got out of class early on Sundays. So I was like, let's do it. Let's get it over with. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
Get it over with. Rip the Band-Aid off and just do it. So you moved out of state. You grew a beard. I have not seen you in over a month. I mean, your hair is a little longer. I mean, for Christ's sakes, man. For Christ's sakes.
I had to find a new person to cut my hair, and she kind of messed it up. She left me long, right at the turn. She left me long, so I've been dealing with that and trying to find. But the beard are those things. I don't want to shave anymore. I've always had jobs my entire adult life where I had to shave and I had to look presentable to the public, and now like nobody cares what I look like. I just show up to work, and as long as I do my job and keep my mouth shut, then nobody cares. So I decided, let's just let it
about the facial hair.
No, like you said, if you don't have facial hair, and I'm just an apprentice lineman, I'm not a lineman, but just to be an apprentice, if you don't have a beard, you get looked at suspect. They think you're a safety inspector or some shit trying to sneak in on them.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that where they look over and they went, OSHA, and they move the other way.
And leaving my last job where I was the safety guy, I was like, I gotta do something with this. You gotta
blend in with the natives is what you gotta do.
Yes,
that's absolutely what you gotta do. So speaking of native, so I don't think anybody is aware of this, but you have had a plethora of shit. Like literally anybody and everybody that is out there, if you see that you want to do something, you do it. You don't like literally, like you were the only one that I know. You're like, you know what? I'm tired of this place. I'm going to bounce. I'm out of here. You were literally the only one that I know. Everybody else is always afraid to jump ship, but you do it. You throw yourself in everything, absolutely everything. Are you loving that? Is it?
It's kind of been my whole life. I've always just been, and I had a rule I made when I was a kid. If I stop having fun, it's time to do something else.
There you go.
And yeah. I've been all over the place, been all over the world, been all over the country. Was homeless for a time, lived in my car, sleeping on people's couches. And it probably comes a little bit from being in the military, where you just, the cliche, you adapt and overcome. It's not so much that as like I lost a lot of friends in Afghanistan, and a lot of military guys have this kind of thing where if you lose friends, you try and live a little extra because they don't get to live anymore. And I've been like that since then. And I just kind of, life's short. There's no redos. There's no, you get to the finish line. You're like, damn, I wish I would have moved. I wish I would have quit that career I hated. I wish I would have moved somewhere or gone somewhere. And I just don't want to be that person. I refuse to be that person. And I just do it. It's kind of funny because now there's one or two other people that are my close net, like group of friends back there in California that are now getting out. Like they're making plans. I said, hey, someone had to be the ramrod to show y'all that it can be done.
Yep. 100%.
And hey, I always learn if it has to be me to go through the wall first, here's what it is.
I tell you what, I will say, if anybody watching this, which I'm sure people will be, if I ever had it to where I ever had a problem and I want to be on somebody's side, like if the world ever comes to an end, I'm hunting you down and I'm on your side. I'm on your team. I'm gonna do it. Because you have wrestling in your background, you have cage fighting in your background, you have military in your background, you were on the police department, you were a firefighter for a short time, I mean, the list, it's like, it kind of reminds me of somebody going to college where they're like, yeah, I got a degree in that. Okay, now I'm going to go and I'm going to be a professional juggler. Then I'm going to go and be a long range rifleman. And then like all these jumping little things. So you graduated from you went to Shasta College, correct?
Yeah, so I was born, and a lot of people don't even know this. I was born in San Mateo, California, in the Bay Area. Uh, I don't remember it. I moved. What I was told, I was my first move. I moved around a lot. My first move, I was 2 weeks old when my parents moved from Moss Beach to, I think, American Canyon. My parents split up when I was young. My mom went back up to Northern California. My dad stayed in the Bay Area. Um, Split time between them, and then grew up mostly Shasta County, Northern California, Redding area. Bounced around a bunch there. I counted one time. By the time I was 18 years old, I'd moved 23 times.
Holy shit.
And I'm still going. And now I just take my house with me.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, I finally got tired of buying and selling houses and buying stuff and getting rid of stuff. So we just sold everything and moved into a 43.5-foot trailer.
I tell you what, that's the smartest thing you could ever do. Let me tell you.
It's nice, but I would love to say that you no longer have to deal with those house issues like plumbing and wiring and leaks. And nope, they're still there. I've had to replace the faucet, the shower head, fix leaks with the hot water heater. It's a joy. Still home ownership. It's just smaller.
The difference is when you're done, you can take a match to it and just be like, bye-bye.
Oh, I have a feeling by the time I get done with this apprenticeship, which is 3 to 3.5 years, depending on how many hours you work and stuff, I'll want to burn this thing to the ground and never go into another trailer. Or we'll just live in a trailer for the rest of our lives and it'd be simple.
Or, you could just, what is it? I had a girlfriend that built a house and they were living in a trailer while the house was being built. And I asked her at the end of it, I said, so what's the one thing? And she goes, if you guys ever ask me to go camping, I'm going to punch you in the throat. I've been camping for 2.5 years. I ain't camping. And I'm like, okay, that's good to know.
That's like when people ask me if I want to go camping before I bought a trailer, my first trailer. I'd say no, I'm good. I was forced to go camping when I was in the Army. I don't camp anymore. I'll stay. I'll maybe one day I'll get a really nice trailer, which I now have. I was like, I ain't sleeping in a tent on the ground. Nah.
I ain't going and paying $300 to go live like a freaking homeless person.
No.
I ain't doing that shit. And it's not worth it. And I tell people that's why I just got done saying it is, so that's why I never joined the military. Number one, I'm a nervous sweater. And number two, if you ever see me in a set of fatigues, Mike, I'm telling you right now, defect to the nearest country because we have lost the war. If I am your only line of defense, we have lost. Like, go forth. And I have zero problem with that. Yeah.
I would love to say that everybody I served with was the best, and there was nobody that was like that. But there was many times where I walked in a building and I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a rough war.
This is gonna be bad.
I mean, it's hard to mess up eggs, but dudes mess up eggs that come pre-scrambled in a bag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't work with some stuff. It just doesn't work that way.
One of the times I snapped is, and I'm kind of known for being a little snappy at times. I just come back from a mission in Afghanistan, and I just wanted something hot to eat. I'm tired. Been sitting in my truck for like 24 hours, and I walk in and the eggs are running, and I'm just like, I hate eggs to begin with, and I really hate runny eggs. And I told this kid, probably a mean thing to say to some poor kid who probably got stuck being a cook in the Army. I said, if I was as good at defending this base as you are at making eggs, we'd all be fucking dead. And
he's probably like, yeah, you're right.
he just kind of stared at me. He was like, so you want eggs or not?
Oh, he could give a fiddler's fart. Your problem was not his. Zero shit.
He did not care. But it's just one of those things that happens. You know, a lot of guys that become cooks in the Army, it's because they failed at everything else. So they're like, now you're going to go cook eggs because you suck. Like you're a hazard to everyone.
Yeah, that would be me. I would be the company cook.
Hey, they have barbers though. They have barbers.
I could do it. I have zero problem. In and out, babe. In and out. I could do it 10 minutes flat. Out the door you go.
It's the easiest haircut ever. You shave it to the scalp. Move to the next.
Sign me up. Sign me up.
What's us? They have these like shop vac cords that are attached to them. They don't even have to clean up hair.
Well, hell.
It just
the recruiter never said anything like that. They never said a word. Not a word.
Yeah.
So being like you've moved all over. So basically you're kind of a loner. You're okay being by yourself. You have no problem with that. People think being a loner is a bad thing. It's not. You are comfortable within yourself to be by yourself. And then was it hard for you to go into the military? Being that way? Or were you looking forward to it?
The military, so I have a crazy story how I joined the military in the first place. I realized pretty quickly my senior year that college wasn't going to work for me at the time, because once I learned like nobody's going to call my mom and be like, he didn't show up to class today, or like he didn't do his assignments, like they're not going to call and like they don't care. I was like, this ain't gonna work. I'm not going. And I was thinking about joining the military or doing something. My dad was trying to get me to go work for him in roofing down in the Bay Area. And I was like, I really don't want to do that. And I was thinking about joining the Navy because I had a lot of family that was in the Navy. And then a recruiter came into my ag class. I was a big ag guy, ag welding, ag mechanics. I've raised pigs in 4-H and FFA for like 9 years. In my junior, senior year, I was in charge of the whole swine production program at my high school. Breeding, all this stuff with the pigs. But this guy came into my ag class, and I was a smart ass kid, just as I am a smart ass adult. And I'm giving this recruiter a ration of shit, just talking all kinds of crap to this poor guy. And he's giving it back to me. He made me do some push-ups a couple times, and I was a wrestler and played football, so I was in shape. Didn't bother me none. And he was like, "Well, what are you gonna do with your life, smart guy? What are you doing that's so great?" And I was like, "Nothing." And he was like, "Well, why not join the military?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm thinking about joining the Navy, actually." And he's like, "You got a quarter?" And I was like, dug around. I'm like, "I don't have one." Some other kid gives him a quarter. And this recruiter flips it in the air. It lands on the floor. And he goes, "That's you. That's you on the boat. The whole floor, that's the ocean. Good luck." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "You're going to be on a boat for years. That's all you're going to do. Float around." And he goes, "I don't know about you, but you know how many the men to women ratio on a boat is?" And I was like, So I listened to him, and he's giving me some more info, and it starts kind of, rolling around in this big empty space between my ears. And so I said, "You know what? I'll make a deal." And he said, "Well," I'll flip this quarter. If it lands on heads, which tails never fails, that's my life motto. I said, "If it lands on heads, I'll join the Army." He said, all right, tough guy, flip it." I flipped the quarter, it landed on heads.
Holy shit. That's how you ended up joining the Army?
That's how I joined the Army. I'll tell you right now, that was the last time I made any life choices.
Do you regret it? Do you honestly? No. I mean, no.
It was an escape for me from my fucked up childhood. It got me far away from all that. Like I said, I was going to join the military or do something, go live in a van down by the river. I don't know. But I wanted to get far away from where I was at. And college wasn't an option. I graduated with like a 2.0 GPA. C's get degrees. That's my motto. I just had to get good enough grades to play sports. Other than that, I didn't care. The only thing that got me through was in like PE, weight training, and my ag classes. I got straight A's. Other than that, it was D's and C's, and that's the only way I made it through. Because I didn't care. It wasn't for me.
So when you went to boot camp, was it just like, I understood the assignment, I'm here?
Yeah.
Was it hard for you though? Because you're a very physical person. You're very physical, and there is no, and that's what I love most about you is there is not 1 minute of a thought where you're like, look, this is nothing against you. This is how I feel. If you don't like it, I'm not going to be sorry for your feelings. I can't comfort you. You're going to have to deal with it on your own. Now move on. Don't waste my space. Was that hard for you going in at first initially?
No, because drill sergeants are straight up. They'll tell you shut the fuck up. They'll tell you to do push-ups. They'll tell you, where you know where you stand. That's it. And that's fine with me. That was one of the biggest problems I had when I transitioned to law enforcement was, to be honest, there's too many babies in law enforcement. There's too many people who have no business being in law enforcement. They just want to be in charge. And their feelings get hurt. And they like running their mouth and saying stuff to you. But then when you say something back, because I don't make shallow cuts, I make deep cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that to some people, they don't take it well. Mm-hmm. So in the military, so I got the basic, and I remember we the shark attack where you get off the bus and you just get mobbed by drill sergeants. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm like, this is like the movies. I'm like, I fucking love this. Like these dudes are going crazy. The first time I got in trouble was for laughing.
Are you serious?
The first time I got smoked, so getting smoked in the military is when like you do something stupid, they make you do push-ups, sit-ups, flutter kicks, overhead arm claps, run around, scrape your head against the ground, doing low crawls, whatever demented thing a drill sergeant or your sergeant can think of. That was the first thing I got smoked for. Drill sergeant called some dude like a big bag of dicks or something, and I just started laughing. And I'm holding my duffel bag over my head because that's what you have to do. And I'm like, and then all of a sudden, bam, here's a drill sergeant, and I'm like, uh-oh. And he's like, what's so funny, you fat fuck? And I was like, oh no. I was like, you done fucked up, Ron. And I was like, oh, nothing. He's like, so I'm not funny? Like, whatever you say, you're not winning. So if you say everything's funny, drill sergeant, he's like, well, you a fucking, am I a clown? Am I a clown? Get down here, yucks. Or if you're like, nothing's funny, he's like, so I'm not funny? You tell me I'm not funny? I'm not a fucking comedian here to entertain you? And you're like, you just can't win.
Can't win.
So I got smoked, and I thought it was funny. He looked at his sheet, and he goes, oh, you're one of mine. You're one of my privates. And I was like, oh, shit. Mm. And his drill sergeant Novak, and he was a good dude. Good dude. So I'm friends with him today on Facebook. Amazing dude. Helped me a lot when in basic. He realized I wasn't like a complete idiot, and I thought he was punishing me all the time because he'd always like make me do extra assignments. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this dude hates me. Why does this dude hate me so much? Like I try hard, I try and keep my mouth shut, trying to just do what I'm told, and then but he would talk to me, talk back, and then he made me like walk through the woods with him, and a couple like this other drill sergeant picking up trash that people had left, and I'm like, why do they keep making me do this shit? So I asked him at the end of basic when we got done, I said, why'd you make me do all this stuff? He's like, Branson, you're the only one I could stand. I was like, what? And he goes, you're the only one that we could have a conversation with. All these other kids, they just stare at you like you got a dick growing out of your forehead. I was like, I thought you hated me. He goes, no. He goes, we liked you. And I was like, oh, cool.
Okay.
But no, basic was cool for me. The only thing that was hard is because I like my stuff. I'm very controlling about my stuff, and I'm kind of OCD about my stuff, and like with my tools and my personal stuff, I'm very OCD. My wife knows, don't touch my stuff. Mm-hmm. That's that. And so when a drill sergeant, when they find like a piece of dirt, a molecule of dirt on the floor, they toss your stuff. They flip your wall lockers over. I one time saw a mattress go out a third floor window. Like these dudes were wild. I loved it. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. But then you get up there and your shit's everywhere. And it would just boil me that somebody else touched my stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's why I hate thieves. I like thieves.
Mhm.
Like that's one of the biggest things when I was a cop where I'd get mad. I'm like, don't touch people's shit. Like, why you gotta touch people's stuff? Like, just leave people's stuff alone. Like, granted, there's other things that piss you off, rapes and murders and all the other shit like that. But it was always like, man, why you gotta steal people's stuff? Like, you just don't want to work hard, and but there's drugs and the other things getting people's brains and messing them up and get them off track too. But yeah, just when they would go through my stuff in basic, I would just be like boiling mad, but there's nothing you can do about it.
So was there ever a time where
One
you're like, I wish I would have never done this. Like, I want to go home. I don't want to do this. I want to never once.
I mean, they say everybody says with wrestling's one of the hardest sports you could do. Not. I mean, there's other sports that are like more physically demanding. There's other sports that are more mentally demanding, but nothing compares to wrestling on the mental and physical level. It is very difficult, and your easiest day of the week is tournament day. You only got to wrestle 3 or 4 times. That's it. Maybe a total of 28 minutes. If you go all your rounds, so you have like 3 2-minute rounds in high school wrestling. So if you go all 3 rounds and you made it to the finals, normally it's either between 3 and 5 matches, depending on the size of the tournament. It's 28 minutes total, maybe 34. But then all week you had 2-hour-long practices in 100+ degree wrestling room, just hammer all day. That's all you do in wrestling practice. They call it the grind. That's all you do is you grind, and it's hot, it's sweaty. The coaches are yelling at you because it stinks. It does stink. Wrestling rooms are nasty places. But so when you go through that for years, and I wrestled for a couple of years, I wasn't great in high school. I just didn't understand like some things. I did all right, won some matches, threw some kids on their heads, but it wasn't great in high school. I didn't make it to state, nothing like that. Placed in some tournaments, won a couple tournaments, but never, went that far. I didn't know how to be dedicated to anything because I just didn't care. As a kid, I just didn't care. It was like, I'll just do this. I don't care. I don't care. Because like I said, I had a very rough childhood. So when you have a very rough childhood like I did, you just kind of become calloused and things just don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, but wrestling was fun. It got me away from the house. Mm-hmm. And I hate team sports. It's so we played softball for years on a co-ed softball team, you and I together.
Yes.
And that was a very it was like I would do it to humble myself because I hate losing. I hate losing more than I like winning.
Yes.
So if we weren't the best team, we had a damn good time.
Oh,
so yeah. It was always a humbling thing for me. Like, it's just fun. You're just doing this for fun. Because I played on softball teams before where we'd won tournaments like that. It was like, so I'm playing on this team. We're just having fun. That's all it is. People are learning to play softball. I'm out here in left field talking mad shit to everybody. I have to hit this squishy ball that don't go nowhere. But I leg them out to first base because I'm fat, but I'm fast. So it was just fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, but team sports drive me nuts because in football, I have the best game in the world. But there's 21 of the 30, 40, 50 guys who, if they suck, it don't matter. Mm-hmm. You be the best in the world. But if they can't do anything right, you're not going to win. And so when I walked onto the mat, it's just you. It's just you. That's it. It doesn't. I mean, there's team points and stuff like that, but it's just you against another human being. That's it. And you both know what you're there for, and that's it. That's probably why I got into MMA too. That and just like smashing people's heads.
I was gonna say, beating the shit out of people was totally up your alley. You're like, I don't even have to be mad at you. It's legal for me to beat the crap out of you. But I get what you're saying, because it's like my daughter with playing basketball. She doesn't like it all that well, but swimming, she's only against herself. She doesn't have another team to depend on herself, and that's why I'm kind of curious to see which area she goes whenever she gets older, because so in the military though, you have to have that camaraderie. So was that like,
that was a struggle for me.
Was that the biggest struggle other than being physical and being yelled at and everything? That it was the personality and the social part of it.
Yeah, when you would get in trouble because other people fucked up, it was like, just don't be stupid. Until it was you that did it, and then it was like, it's not my fault. You're
But
like,
if it was somebody else, you're like, you.
oh yeah. You end up there was a couple kids that like every day they did something, and the drill sergeants were so mad at them that they just destroyed all of us. And it was like the worst one we ever got. We were in basic, and it was so I went to basic in 2006 in Fort Knox, Kentucky, because I was a dirty ass tanker. And it was cold. It was one of the coldest winters they'd had in a long time. And 3 a.m, this drill sergeant, this little Filipino dude from San Diego, the meanest little honey badger of a human being I've ever met. Dude hated my guts. I have no idea why. Just because I existed on this planet, I guess. He's tiny. He's like 5'5", just a ball of hate, straight hatred. And he found a moth. So I was on the 3rd floor barracks. The 2nd floor barracks on the other side, he found a moth in a sink. And next thing we hear is trash cans getting thrown. He's screaming because at night there's only one drill sergeant. So there's like a couple hundred dudes and one drill sergeant that's in charge all night. They call it staff duty. So everybody outside. So we go outside. It's freezing cold. We're like, what happened? Everybody's like, we don't know. Everybody, was somebody asleep on fire watch? No, everybody was up. What the fuck happened? And we just start getting destroyed. I mean, just flat destroyed by this guy. I mean, literally at one point, we had our heads against the frozen grass, low crawling, just scraping, just low crawling. He'd come up. One kid didn't have his butt. He had his butt up in the air, looked like he was plowing the dirt. Stomped the kid in the ass. It was wild, but he was just mad. I don't know. Maybe his wife left him. I don't know what it was. Who knows? Maybe he just hated us. Maybe we just sucked. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was so bad. We were out there for 3 hours.
For a freaking moth.
So he keeps we'd come back and now we're sweating. And then he would bring us back, put us back in formation and make us stand there. And then you start getting cold. So we'd be like, oh, and then someone would shiver. He's like, oh, are you cold? Are you cold? Do I need to go again? And you're like, and then you go again. You're doing push-ups, sit-ups, and it just never ends. And the only way this ended was the sun came up. And another drill sergeant showed up and was like, what's going on? And he was just like, fuck these pieces of shit. And he's like, how long have they been out here? He's like, I don't know, since 3. And he's like, nah, we're done. And he's like, no, we're not done. But this other drill sergeant that showed up was a rank above him. So he was like, no, we're done. You go home. He really we could see they were starting to kind of argue. And it was like, mommy's going to, daddy's going to beat mommy. And so we were like, uh-oh. And then he was like, no, you're done. No. And then he called it by his rank. And that's when somebody's serious, when they're almost equal, but he's like, no, staff sergeant, you're done. And it was like, uh-oh. So he left, and then he was like, I'm sorry.
He got slapped. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, uh-oh. So then we got to go back in. And he was like, what the fuck happened? We were like, we don't know. And some kid was like, he found a moth. It was like, oh my God. It was like 3.5 hours. It sucked. That was rough. It was sometimes the worst part was you just didn't know why. And that 3-letter word got me in more trouble in the military than anything. Why? Go to the motor pool and sweep. Why? It's dirt. And they just come unglued on me don't ask why, just do it. And that was a difficult thing because I like to know things. I like to understand why I'm doing something. Like I said, I'll put my head through a wall if you tell me there's someone on the other side you want. Okay, head first, full speed. But if you're like, put your head through the wall, I'm like, why? Because I said so. Yeah, that's not good enough for me.
That's not a good enough reason. So
go ahead. I eventually adopted and adapted, learned, I have to go sweep the motor pool because they have nothing for us to do today. But if I'm standing here where the first sergeant commanders, they can see us, they're going to get pissed and make us do something stupid. So it was just out of sight, out of mind, just disappeared. And once I started to comprehend that, as I started to kind of get higher ranks, it was like, oh, okay. And like, man, I caused a lot of problems that could have been avoided. But for me, getting smoked, I didn't care because it was I just get stronger. I just get in better shape.
So when you see this and then going from, moving all the time, then going through basic, and then So walk me through what happened after you graduated basic? Did you immediately go, or did you like, were you stationed somewhere, or how did that happen?
So you get sent to basic, and then you go through basic, and they do this evil thing where they give you choices that like you get to pick 2 stateside duty stations and 2 states or and 2 overseas duty stations.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was because I'm stupid and I didn't know what a good base was. I put like Fort Lewis, Washington, which is a great base, and then I put Fort Irwin, California, because I'm like, oh, it's somewhat close to home. Fort Irwin's the desert. It's horrible. It's the worst place ever. It's almost as bad as Yakima, Washington. And yeah, I mean it, Yakima. You. Um, I hate Yakima. So I and then I put like Italy. They don't send tankers to Italy. I'm such an idiot. And then I picked some other random place where they don't also send tankers. And then because I went where my basic was started in September and we ended in February, so we had Christmas break. The military takes 2 weeks off for Christmas, so I got sent home, or we all got sent home for Christmas break. But right before that, they were like, hey, we're going to give you guys your duty stations, which they don't normally do till the end. They're like, because you guys are going home, we're going to give you the opportunity to go home, square some of your affairs away for going overseas, whatever you got to do. So he's reading down the list, and he's like, Branson, Fort Lewis, Washington. And I was like, yes. And he was like, you're an idiot. I was like, what do you mean, Drill Sergeant? He goes, there ain't no tanks there, stupid. And I was like, what do you mean? So because I joined, it's the middle of the Iraq and Afghanistan war. Because I'm like, I'm going to war. Like, fuck it, whatever. If I die, I die. I don't care. I got nothing to live for. But I joined to be a tanker because I'm like, it's a little safer, and I really don't want to walk everywhere. Infantry, they just walk along the ground. Like, that sounds lame. So I'm like, I'll be a tanker. I'll still combat, get to sit in the big tank and shoot it. And yeah, I'm the size of a fucking tank. Do you know how well I fit in a goddamn tank, Monica?
Oh
I
shit.
don't.
You don't.
And I learned in basic I'm fucking claustrophobic.
Oh my God. Well,
I
good thing
would
you joined the Navy.
yeah,
Right?
so I get sent to Fort Lewis. So I come back, we finish basic training in AIT. So my basic and AIT were is at one place with the same drill sergeants because they were tankers. So they put us through basic training, and then we just transitioned into our A school, our technical school, where we learn our jobs. So it was great. So if you pissed a drill sergeant off the first day, he was going to be there for 16 weeks.
Oh,
And I
dude.
had the distinct honor of being the only private to get smoked by every one of my drill sergeants.
You're an
I
overachiever.
talented,
Mm-hmm.
talented. Takes a
Overachiever.
lot of talent from your cock holster.
Uh,
So you get sent to your duty station. Some guys, they're like, you're going to Fort Hood, you're going to be in Iraq in 2 weeks. And there were some dudes there was one guy, he was dead. We graduated basically, he was dead within a month. This
wow.
Hispanic kid from Southern California. I can't remember his name. I wish I could. But yeah, he was dead within a month of graduating basic training. Got sent to Iraq and got blown up. So it was in the middle of the shit. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna deploy. I'm gonna get to Fort Lewis, I'm gonna deploy. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do there because there's no tanks. So I go to some striker training, which is an 8-wheeled armored personnel carrier with different weapons on it. They quit using them because they suck now. So I go to Fort Lewis, and I get sent to this unit. It's 5th Brigade, 2nd ID, 2-1 Infantry. And I show up, and they're like, who are you? I'm like, Private Branson. Like, what are you? I'm like, stupid? I don't know. What do you mean? And they're like, no,
I'm a Sagittarius. I like long walks. I don't know.
I like short walks. I don't like walking at all.
I know. And not in closed places, fucker.
Yeah, so they go, oh, what? No, what's your MOS, stupid? I'm like, oh, I'm a tanker. They're like, why are you here? I'm like, I don't know. This is where they sent me, bro. So they're like, oh, you're on the MGS platoon. I'm like, what's that? They're like, we don't know. So they're like, just be in formation tomorrow. Be in formation tomorrow, 0630 with a 25-pound rucksack. And I'm like, okay, we're going to go for a little walk. So, and I've done ruck marches in basic. We've done like a 12-miler and some long stuff, but not like this. It's different. So I go to formation. I'm standing there looking stupid with my little backpack on. And they're like right face, which means turn right. And they're like double time march, which means run. It's like double time march. It's a kind of oxymoron there. So you start running, and I'm like, what are we doing? I'm like, what is this chaos we're ensuing upon? And 8 miles later, I'm almost fucking dead.
Oh my God.
I'm like, and I just graduated basic. I'm supposed to be, lean, mean, fighting
Top
machine.
notch. Yeah.
Hell no.
Yeah.
I wasn't shit. And these dudes that just graduated basic from infantry were just like, what a good run. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm like twice your size.
I'm gonna vomit now. Thank you very much.
I think
Funny
I did
fucking
vomit
A.
once. Yeah, I did vomit once. And the funny part is, I fucking loved infantry. I loved it. I should have been infantry. I should not. I tried to reclass when I reenlisted, and they were like, "No, we need tankers." I'm like, "But I don't like it. I don't want to do it."
I don't want to, sir.
But I used to, in Afghanistan, when guys would go on leave, I would volunteer to go on missions with the infantry dudes, with my buddies.
Really?
So I'd volunteer to get myself fucked up. Which actually ended up being one of the worst situations I ended up being in. I almost got blown up, and I saw an Afghan dude fly like 200 feet in the air. It was like a cartoon. Another dude, like, because they hit an IED, and like this dude was riding on the back of this Ford Ranger, and they hit like 1,000 pounds. And I thought it was the bumper, Monica. It was a dude.
Holy
and then another dude, he comes walking out of the dust, looking like the kid in the Sandlot after the vacuum blew up.
Uh-huh.
He's covered dust. He's confused. His ears are bleeding because he just got blown up. And I'm like, holy shit, that dude's alive. And then it was a bad day. It was a bad day. It was a rough day. It was a rough day.
Mm-hmm.
But I laugh now because if I don't laugh, I'll just cry.
Exactly.
So, but it's, Afghanistan, a lot of military guys that I deployed with and all my friends, they missed deployments.
Mm-hmm.
Life is easy.
Yeah.
You got one job, or you have two jobs. Well, I guess 2.5, depending on how close you are with your buddy. Don't die, and don't get anybody else killed. That's your job. All shit back home, it don't matter. It does not matter. Your wife banging Jody, leaving you for taking all your money, it don't matter. Who cares? I'll deal with that in a year. Your car getting repoed because you forgot to set up payments before you left, it don't matter. I'll get a new one.
Mm-hmm.
You just got one job, don't die. And a lot of my buddies, a lot of guys struggle with that when they get out because they're like, life is hard. Life is really, really hard. Because there's lots of man.
That's what's bizarre to me is you're going over for a job that your only job is to not die, which, if you think about it, years ago in Vietnam, I should have Googled it, the guys that were hitting the ground in the jungle, I think it was like 16 seconds was their life expectancy or something like that. It was seconds. It wasn't minutes.
Yeah.
And you talk to them now and they don't regret it. They miss it. They would go back to it if they needed to. If shit ever hits the fan, they're the first ones that are like, I got this. This is my jam. I can take care of this. Credit score, mortgages, that kind of shit. I had one guy tell me he used to be a gunner in a helicopter, and he goes, that is what makes me nervous. I don't know numbers. I don't know if you tell me that this is how much interest I pay. He goes, I don't give a shit about that. He goes, but I know it, the ins and outs of my machine gun. I know everything about that. And you're thinking, holy crap. And then civilian life is hard for him. But that isn't. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's hard. Like I have buddies who still like they never came back. It's called like they never came back. They're here. They post on Facebook every day, but they never came back. They're still there, and they'll be there forever. And it's like I have this weird thing where like people thank me for my service, and it makes me super awkward. And I say, hey, don't thank me. My dumb ass signed up twice. Like thank Vietnam veterans, thank World War II veterans. They didn't sign up. They didn't know what the fuck they were getting into. I did. A lot of my other buddies, we did. We knew there was a war, and we all were like, yeah, let's go. Those guys, those old timers, they got drafted. Or some of them were like, I'm going to go join the army so I can get drafted to be in the fucking Marines. That's the only reason they got in. There were some patriots. There's always some patriots. It's like, you ever see the movie Tom Cruise? Well, I can't remember the name. He plays like a detective military guy who's like he's investigating this
Reacher.
shooting.
Jack
Jack
Reacher.
Reacher. I love that movie.
I
Even though
love
in
it.
the book the guy's like 6'4"
I know.
and whatever. Hey, he's a crazy Scientologist. I still love his movies. I don't even care.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't care. Tom Cruise, he's great. I love his movies. They shoot from low angles. I don't care. Um, but he said there's like three types of people who join the military. There's the tradition guys, the guys who lose a family job. There's the guys who were getting out of trouble, and there's the guys who just didn't have nothing better to do. That's me. I didn't have nothing better to do. So those
Don't
guys,
you think those make the best soldiers though?
nah. Good
No?
leadership. Good leadership makes good soldiers. You can take someone who sucks. Like I sucked. I wasn't good. I could shoot guns from growing up, but I didn't know anything. And then I got sent to infantry where I really didn't know anything. I had some damn good leaders. I had some dudes that I still to this day, if Rob Carter, one of the baddest dudes I ever worked with, loved the dude to death. If he called me and was like, "Hey, I need you. Let's go. Let's do it. I'll follow you into hell." Captain Hetz, same thing. Great dudes. I'd follow them straight to hell. Don't even care. Because they're just good dudes. And they're the ones who molded us. Those guys, good leaders. And then they make more leaders, and it just perpetuates it. And those are what makes good soldiers. There's all kinds of walks of life. I had a dude who, in basic, he didn't learn how to walk till he was 6 years old because he was from Compton. Because there's too many drive-bys. You didn't walk around your house. And every time a tank would go off, that dude would flinch. That dude, he joined the military to not join a gang. That dude's a badass. I have no idea what he did after. I don't know how good he was. He was a good tanker in basic. He listened. You didn't have to tell that dude twice to do nothing. It just all depends on your leadership.
Mm-hmm.
There are some dudes I deployed with who were terrible because they had terrible squad leaders. They had terrible, platoon sergeants. But a lot of dudes, when they make it to that level, like platoon sergeant, which is like you're in charge of the whole platoon, it's for a reason. And what's crazy is all my buddies that I was in with are now in those positions. And I'm like, what is that like? They're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. They just follow what Sergeant Carter and the other dudes put in place when we were little baby dumbass privates. And they molded us and beat us to death with this stuff. And they just became those dudes. And now they're trying to mold these TikToking, Snapchatting little fucking mush brains into being soldiers.
Can you imagine if social media was around back when number one, I would be in cancel culture so gosh damn quick it would make your head spin. And number two, they would know what I did for a ride home from Chico one time. So I don't need that kind of attention at all. I don't need it. It doesn't need to be there.
Sometimes you gotta suck a little dick for beer money, even though you don't drink.
I didn't have to do that, but let me tell you, it only got me to East Street, which really pissed me off. I couldn't get all the way to Chapman. I was like, you bastards.
Man, I did all that work.
I know.
All that 27 seconds of work.
I'm exhausted, and I have to fucking walk the last 2 blocks. What kind of bullshit is this? So,
if Snapchat, TikTok would have been around when I was in the military, when me and my boys were doing our chaotic random madness, I'd have never been a cop. Hell no. If there was proof of the chaos, nah. That's why I try and tell kids, like my nephews and stuff. I'm like, put the phone down. Mm-hmm. Nobody needs to see this. Mm-mm. Nobody needs to know what you're doing every minute of the day. Who cares? Mm-hmm. Be yourself.
And it's hard though. I mean, you have to admit, number one, it's too easy because they have the whole world in that phone. They have and we give it to them. You have 2 children yourself, that, and it's so much easier. Like mommy and daddy just need 10 minutes to not hear any noise that comes out of your mouth. We love you. We made you. We love you with all of our hearts. But here, take this and shut up. But you realize that you can't do that. They can't
Well,
be a constant diet of it.
what's funny to me is when parents, like our parents, say like, "Oh, you learn tablet." I'm like, if you had it, if you would have had it, you'd have done the same thing. Quit even lying. Quit playing like you wouldn't have thrown a tablet at my head when I asked my 40th question in a row. I mean, like, shut up.
Mhm. Yeah. I love you, but if you don't be quiet, that's like somebody said, they got on me one time because I gave my daughter a pacifier and they said, oh my God, we never gave our kids pacifiers. I'm like, no, because most of it was made out of asbestos and you didn't. But at this point, I would let her suck on a spark plug if I knew that it would keep her somewhat quiet so I could sleep. Like,
No, I'd plug it in and turn the motor over someday.
like you don't, and we love our children, but I mean,
Uh,
we're just being honest. We're just being completely honest. So I want to go back to this because you told me a story about this gentleman that you called him a spider monkey. And
oh,
I
my boy.
really, really want you to tell that story because that is the most awesomest thing on the planet.
You have to give you a little more info. Which story? I've been hitting. Which one?
The
It was
one that
O'Keefe. I know it was O'Keefe.
it was O'Keefe, and he ended up grabbing a hold of somebody, and because he was little, he was only like what, five something, five.
He he's like 5'9", maybe 5'8", 135 pounds soaking wet. He's
He
probably
said he was little.
137 now because he's got long hair.
Really?
He's one of those dudes. He got out of the military and he had a rough time. He watched one of his sergeants die in front of him, got blown in half, and he literally it should have been him. That's what he thinks in his head. He was like, I gotta go back on the roof and check something, and the sergeant was like, oh no, I got it, and he went back up there, and he got cut in half by an IED. Sergeant Gutierrez, he's from Galt, California. Good dude, good dude. Him and his wife, he had like three boys. But every Thanksgiving, if you didn't go home, he'd invite you over to his house. And he's a good dude, good family. And he'd invite everybody over. Didn't matter. Even if he didn't like you, he'd invite you over. We had like 30, 40 dudes at his house. He's a good dude. Staff Sergeant Gutierrez is good dude. And his boys are like all like grown now, which is crazy. But O'Keefe in his head should have been him. Because O'Keefe was like me. A lot of us, we didn't have nothing to live for. We didn't care. He's got 3 kids. He's a great dude. For all intents and purposes, we're going to grow up to be degenerate pieces of shit. So what's the matter if we die? So it just eats you the dudes up. But O'Keefe, he was gangly, but he couldn't fight. he liked to fight, but he couldn't fight. He had a glass jaw. And I would throw him at people. I'd pick him up. He'd put his hands up like this. He's like, I'm gonna come on you like a spider monkey. Because it was right when the Talladega Nights came out, And I'd pick him up because I could pick him up and I'd throw him at people and he'd attack him and jump on their back. And yeah, he was a wild. I put him in a duffel bag one time. he would fit in a duffel bag, and I picked him up and I carried him, and then I set him down next to some dudes who didn't know he was in there, and then he came out like a fucking demented Jack in the Box. But I love that dude dead. We kind of fell out of touch, like what happens sometimes. But when he went full left turn, grew a big beard, grew long, beautiful, luscious hair. But yeah, I don't know where he is anymore. Like I said, we fall out of touch. Some dudes you stay in touch with. Some dudes are active on social media. Some military guys. That's the only reason I have Facebook, and is to keep in touch with those dudes and keep up with, honestly, when dudes off themselves or somebody dies from some fucked up disease they got. But some guys, they just kind of check out. They just hit control off.
It's not being able to. I mean, of course I don't see it. I mean, I don't have any military background, but I do have fire department, EMS, and it's just when your file is full is what my dad used to say. When your file is full, you can't compute anymore. It doesn't, you don't have any more memory left. You're done. You've had enough. And a lot of guys have, sometimes their iCloud is never full. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it just all depends on what you're used to. But I do know that uh, gallows humor is what they call it, is, so you deal with that, and then you come home. What is funny to you is not necessarily funny to other people. And that's a hard thing because listen, I live with a person who has, they've dealt with PTSD. My dad had PTSD, all from the things that they saw from being a fireman. And you just learn to just like either laugh with them, or if you don't understand it, you turn around and walk away. You don't correct them. I never done that. Never. So was it hard coming back to civilian life, dealing with that and realizing like you had to tone it down just a scotch, or have you always been like, fuck it, if you don't get me, I'm out?
Pretty much. I was a pretty angry when I was a kid, like especially my first couple years in the army. I was not the most pleasant human being to be around. I wasn't this laughable, joking, funny, good time guy I am now. I was a very angry human being. Like I said, I had a pretty atrocious childhood, abuse, stuff like that. Person's now in prison for the rest of their fucking life. But I did a happy person, and I didn't take shit very well. And my automatic response was like, I'll just beat the shit out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a healthy way to deal with conflict. I've learned. So I didn't have friends. Thank God I found MMA, and I found jujitsu and grappling. I found a guy, Pete Gray. My first week, I sent to combatives class because my platoon sergeant was a combatives instructor. And he's like, "You big, dumb, goofy looking sucker, you want to go to combatives?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And then I met this guy, Pete Gray, and he after the class, he was like, "Hey, you seem like you really like this. Do you want to go to a gym?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah!" And he took me to this gym called United Training Center, and they're in Olympia or Lacey, Washington. And Eddie and Lisa Ellis, great human beings, kind of saved me, gave me an outlet, gave me a family that didn't treat me like shit. Um, and Lisa, I still talk to them to this day. Great people. They've dedicated their whole lives to mixed martial arts in their gym. Uh, at one point, lived in their gym. They built a room in their gym, and they lived there because it was the only way they could keep it going. And COVID almost fucking killed their business because of that dipshit governor up there in Washington. But they they're fucking patriots. They made it through. Both of them have fought in the UFC. Lisa's won all kinds of grappling championships. She just took bronze in the worlds and retired. She's had 2 kids and then came back and competed again. Just great human beings. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. Between them and finding fucking therapy, I wouldn't be here. I'd have been dead a long time ago. But it's hard. So like for me, the military wasn't hard dealing with that stuff because my childhood was worse. Um, but we lost 43 guys from our battalion or from our brigade, 5th Brigade. We lost 43 guys in 12 months. 43 guys were killed. I knew most of them. I went to a lot of funerals. I buried one of my best friends, Kyle Wright from Illinois. He's tattooed on my foot. People ask me why'd you like, it's always funny because it has like, it's just super cheesy cornball stuff you put. It says Carpe Diem and no excuses with his initials. And people always like, what's that goofy tattoo on your foot? And I always like laugh. I'm like, you're about to feel like shit. It's that fucked up humor though. I'm like, that's my buddy who got blown to pieces in Afghanistan. And they're like, oh. I'm like, if you like shit, I tell you. And then I just laugh. And they're like, but you lose people and you lose parts of you. And because I got hurt in Afghanistan and sent back. Nothing crazy. I get shot, blown up. I'm not fucking cool. Never thought I was. Just got stupid injury. Mm-hmm. My kid, this is what I say when people are like, oh, you don't care? I'm like, I don't care. My wife loves me and my kids think I'm cool as shit, so I don't care.
You have some of the biggest fans. Yep.
And so I got sent back, and then about 2 weeks after I got back, Kyle got killed. And we flew back on leave together. He was going to Chicago. I was going to California. But we ended up at the same time. We were different, like not too far away from each other in Afghanistan. Same battalion. Just you get split up. People go different places, different companies. We end up going on leave at the same time. So we flew together. This fucking guy slept on my shoulder for 16 goddamn hours. My shoulder was numb from him just snoring in his Ambien-induced coma because he wouldn't share his Ambien with me. But this guy, because he didn't want to fly back by himself, I got to Dallas-Fort Worth, and I got in late going back to Afghanistan. And I'm like, damn, Kyle already flew out. And I get to the MWR, sleeping on the couch. I said, what'd you do? He goes, I missed my flight. I said, how? The lady goes, no, fuck no, man. I didn't want to go back without you. And so that was the last time I saw him, though. And so then January 13th, 2010, he got killed. And that fucked me up. One of the only times I've ever had a drinking problem in my life. Mm-hmm. The only time I've ever really had a substance problem in my life. I was drinking like a 24-pack of beer a day. I'd get off work at 1 PM because I was hurt and going to medical appointments. So you get off early. And I'd go buy a case of PBR and drink it in my room by myself. Just
you were like, gotta do something.
Because even though we weren't in the same place, he, in my opinion, he was a better dude than me. So it's called survivor's guilt. That's what it is. And so I started just drinking. And I went to his funeral and I met his family, met his dad. I'm still very close with all of them to this day. I can't see his dad without crying like a baby though. And it was the first time so we went to this, he got buried in Arlington. And we went to this, I went to this fancy, it's like the Hyatt Regency, whatever, in Arlington, Virginia. And I walk into the bar and I see his dad. His dad's a big dude, Rick. He was a combat medic back in the day. And I see him and I just start crying. And he's like, it's okay, give him a hug. And he just wanted to hear stories, of the goofy shit his kid did. He didn't want to hear like, oh, my kid was a great shot. Now he wanted to hear boys' stories, the stories that happened on Friday night or Saturday when that fucking knucklehead climbed a goddamn transmission tower in power lines. Now I know, like, why would you do that? Because now I'm an apprentice lineman. I'm like, you're gonna die. But like they climbed up to the top of these transmission towers, and like he just wanted to hear those stories. And I remember it was when I started drinking Johnny Walker Blue Label, which is a higher end scotch. And he was like, what's the most expensive bottle you got? And the bartender said, oh, we got this stuff. Nobody's ever had any. And he's like, take the cork out and throw it away. And we drank the whole bottle that night. I was hammered. But it was hard. Mm-hmm. I was in pain from my injury, so it wasn't fun. I had to we had to use you don't ever want to go to a funeral at Arlington, but if you ever had the opportunity, don't pass it because it's something that you'll never forget. Had to walk long ways with his family in my full dress uniform. Paid my own way because my unit wouldn't send me. Pissed me off. Probably when I started becoming disenfranchised with the military and with the government, pretty much. When I learned they gave more of a shit about whether or not his M4s were covered than one of his body parts. Mm-hmm. You learn you're just a number, but it is what it is. Now I understand. It just is. That's just the machine. But dudes like that, you just don't forget. No. And it's hard. Some days are hard. Like I know January 13th is coming up, and I have to prepare for it. And I cry every time. And every year I wake up and I just cry. I remember everything about that day, where I was sitting when his girlfriend called me and told me like how far I ran to go look at the sergeant and be like, did this really just happen? And him be like in tears too, because he knew Kyle. I know everything about that day. But so it's hard. You lose that many guys. Over 500 guys got hurt in a year. The military called our unit the biggest mistake in modern military history.
Holy shit.
Our brigade was so fucked up they changed the name of it after that deployment, because it was 5th Brigade. After we came back, they changed it to 2nd Brigade to get rid of the stigma.
Holy
We
shit.
had some bad at the very top. We had some bad leadership. Besides the Sergeant Major Prosser, who's a great fucking dude, and Colonel Tennell, who was another great fucking dude. Called me All-State Man. Looked just like him, sounded like him, but was missing half his calf from getting blown up, but stayed in. Those two were great dudes. And the pieces of shit that Obama put in place blamed them for why our unit was messed up. And I blame Obama and his fucking moronic policies of we can't shoot people. People are allowed to dig in the middle of the road at 2 a.m. and they call it farming, and then we get blown up the next day. It's his fault. I blame Obama solely for everybody who got killed in my unit and his fucked up policies. But that's the world we live in. But it's hard when you get out, because I got out on a medical discharge because I couldn't get better. And then I afterwards got some treatment and stuff and got better. But I was very angry when I got out. And before I got out, though, I got just mad, even madder, because now I have trauma from my childhood on top now. And then I get my buddies getting killed, and now I'm not allowed to be in the military anymore because they call me combat ineffective. And now I have to get out, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. So I was just angry. You couldn't even look at me without me getting mad. And one day I got called in on Saturday. Everybody got called in. Somebody messed up. You get called in, and I was pissed. And I walked in late, and the first sergeant said something to me, and I went off. I full snapped, and you don't do that. I started just motherfucking him into the ground, and he was like, "Whoa, let's go outside." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go outside," thinking he wants to fight because I'm stupid. It's still stupid brain. I'm only 21 years old. And he walks outside, and to his credit, Sergeant Jackson saved my life. Hand of God, dude, saved my life. He walked outside, and I'm thinking we're gonna fight, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "What do you mean what's wrong? I don't want to be here." He's like, "Nah, that's not it. What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I fucking hate you. I hate everything. I don't want to be here." And he saw through me saying I don't want to be here as I don't want to be alive. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to fucking have the thoughts in my head anymore. And he told me, he goes, you're going to mental health." And I was like, "Fuck you, I'm not." And he was like, "No, you're not. You're going. You're either going to go on your own, or I'm going to have the MPs come get you." And I was like, I really don't want to get arrested. I was like,
that doesn't sound like fun.
I really don't want to get, put on a mental health hold because I just motherfucked my first sergeant challenge to do a fight. So I said, "Okay, fine, I'll go." He's like, "Good, go." So I go. It took me like 30 minutes before I'd even walk in the door. I just paced in front of the building. And it was on base. And I finally walk in, and it's a very awkward thing. When you walk in, you're like, it's like you're buying drugs. You're like, "I'd like to get some mental health help." I'm like, they're like, "Yeah, we do that here." You're like, "Yeah."
"Oh, okay. Well, I just didn't know if there's a secret handshake or a wink or a."
And I got this counselor. Thank God I got the one I did. He let me bullshit him for a couple sessions, and then he was like, he just put his pen down and just crossed his arms. And I was like, "What?" He goes, "I'm just gonna sit here and stop listening." He goes, "Until you decide that you're gonna be honest with me and tell me what's really, really going on, I'll just sit here." And I was like, this dude just called me out on my shit because I was just lying. "I'm fine. Everything's fine. He just pissed me off, blah, blah, blah." And he was like, "Nah, if we're going to do this, let's do this." And that's when I started the first time that, I started working through my childhood trauma and learning that what happened to me as a kid wasn't my fault. And then my friends dying wasn't my fault. And that dude, my last session just kind of happened with him. My last session in therapy with that guy was my last day in the Army. And I walked in there and went through my shit with him. And I told him, I said, "You took a gun out of my hand?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" I said, I was close to killing myself. Because I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to live anymore. I just didn't want to deal with life anymore. And that dude was like, he started, like, he got teared up. He was like, "That's why we do it, man." And it's hard. It's hard to go to therapy. It's hard to be 250-pound fuck dude who's gotten a cage 7 times, fucking beat other dudes half to death, and gone to war and done all the shit I've done, and then be like, they couldn't kill me, so I'm gonna kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then walk in and tell somebody your problems and change my life. I've done other times in therapy, but that was the main time. Other times, every once in a while, if I start feeling shit starting to bubble up, like I can't, use my coping mechanisms to deal with, I'll take my ass back to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
My wife will every once in a while be like, "You need to go to therapy?" And
You're like, I wasn't thinking about it, but you know what? I think I ought to.
and I'll get mad. I'll get pissed at her, and then I'm like, probably. Because that's how you treat spouses. You're like, you ain't gonna tell me.
And then they end up being right. Yeah.
And then they're mostly right.
Mm-hmm.
And
I always knew it was hard. Not the same, but like when my husband would come home from a call, and if it was really bad, especially the bus accident that we had, and all of them, we used to have a rocking chair. For years, we always had a rocking chair, and I knew the call was bad when it was 2:00 in the morning, and you hear it squeaking, and him just rocking back and forth, and I'd walk in and go, what's going on, and he's like, nothing, it's fine, it's fine. And then the more he talked, the more it would rock. And he would start talking about the call. And the harder he would rock, the faster he would talk. And then pretty soon I knew we were good when it started slowing down, And then I'm thinking, okay, we passed that bridge. Okay, we're okay. But then it hits him every once in a while. He'll say, if we see somebody, he'll be like, oh yeah, that person, if a name's brought up, he's like, oh, I saw their brains in the middle of the road. Yeah, that sucks, or I did this, or I saw that, so it's not the same. But everyone deals with trauma differently, and everyone has to have that moment. But I think the strongest ones, you have to admit, are the ones that say, you got to fucking help me. Because if you don't, I'm not going to help myself. And it is the hardest thing you could ever do. That's the number one thing that they tell us.
I thought about it for a long time of like, what did I want my message to be on your podcast? Like, what did I want my end thing to be? I'm not saying we're done. I'm just saying my message is like, get help. Mm-hmm. Joe Rogan said it best. You and I both, we're diehard, fans of the Church of Rogan, or as Dana White called him yesterday, Dr. Joe Rogan.
Doctor, yeah.
Doctor MD. So we have a gun control issue, or we have a mental health issue disguised as a gun control issue, and that's a huge problem in this country. Especially with men. You don't want to say you got a problem. You're the man. You're the man. Like, I'm 6 foot tall, 215 pounds, twisted steel, and sex appeal. I'm fucking good. And men have that thing they say, I'm all right. How you doing? I'm all right.
I'm fine.
And that's when you know. And like my wife says, my tell is how I made myself go bald is I'd rub my head. I'd just be there rubbing my head, and that's how I got that's how I started losing my hair. My wife says I rubbed my hair off my head. So you got to learn when you've had enough. And that's when I got out of law enforcement is I realized I was just re-traumatizing myself. Every time I went to a child abuse call, I was just living my fucking nightmare again. Mm-hmm. And my problem is I got in trouble with law enforcement because I kind of lost my zest, my zeal, my give a fuck about law enforcement. And our mutual friend JC asked me, and he had a meeting with me. He was like, "What's your problem?" And I was just like, "I don't know what to do anymore." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I had a goal in law enforcement. I had a goal when I set out. If I could help one kid that was going through something like I went through, if I could help one kid, either not do what the fucking piece of shit cop did when I was a kid and they could have made the situation better, or was just there when the kid was like, when they called and said, this is happening to me, you just listen and you help them. If I could help one kid, my career in law enforcement, I'm good." I had 2 in the first year and a half. I had one girl who accused her uncle of abusing her, and If it wasn't for me, she never would have testified. I had to be there the day she testified. Like, you can do this. You're not a victim. You're a survivor. And there's a difference in the. That's the problem in our society. We got too many victims, not enough survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you're a survivor, so you can do this. You walk in there, and you tell everybody, you tell the world what happened to you, and you make him atone for his fucking choices.
Yep.
And she did, and he went to prison for a long time. And she said, if it wasn't for me, she never would have done it. And then another girl who was being abused by a family member, she came in. I took a call, worked a case. Unfortunately, with the way things work, there was nothing we could do. With ages and things, it's just nothing we could do. It's a fucked up thing that happens in law enforcement. Where sometimes there's just nothing you can do. But I was there, and I talked to her, and I told her my story, and showed her that, like, don't listen to the bullshit people say. And like the statistics of like kids of abuse, re-abuse, they become pieces of shit. They are addicted to drugs. They become criminals. All the shit, all of it. And I said, look at me. I'm a cop. Did 5 years in the Army. Went to college. Was an All-American wrestler in college. I'm here. Mm-hmm. I'm not a piece of shit. I'm not addicted to drugs besides caffeine and riding dirt bikes. But you can do it. And then, I'd see her again for 6 months, a year. And then I saw her. She was working at the Wendy's at the Pilot. And I walked up to the cash register. And because his graveyard brain's not fully working great, I just want to get something fat to eat, make myself fatter and feel happy for 30 seconds. I look at her and she just looks at me and starts crying. And I'm like, are you okay? She goes, you don't remember me? And I was like, wait a second. You're the girl. She's like, yeah. She goes, you saved my life. She's like, tell me your story and what you went through and how successful you were saved my life, because I was going to kill myself. And it was like, I'm done. I have nothing left to do. Because then I transferred, I changed departments, same place, same area, just different department, looking for something to get me motivated to want to care. Mm-hmm. And then I would go to child abuse calls. And for a long time, I swear to God, I was a one-man, fucking Law and Order SVU detective. I got every child abuse call, and it just, every day, I would just want to go home and eat my gun. Because I'm like, I just don't. And then it took me a while to understand why I was getting crazy about it. And then I was like, I'm just re-victimized. I'm just re-abusing my own psyche with these fucking poor kids and what they're going through. And I was just like, and I was starting to become angry again. My wife was like, you're kind of being a dick. And, I wasn't being a great, never was a bad dad, but I just wasn't there. I was working graveyards. And when you work graveyards and you're a cop that doesn't get paid with a shit, no cops get paid very well. So you work every overtime shift you can. So you're working graveyards during the week, and then you're picking up another day shift or two during the weekend. And you just start to lose your mind, and you become disenfranchised with human beings in total. And then on top of all that, you deal with the other calls, the bullshit, or the calls of, dead people, having to go to someone's house at 2 a.m. and tell them their kid died. Mm-hmm. No one should do that.
No.
There's not a human being designed by God or anybody else that can deal with that and be okay. No. My last coroner's case, because I was a deputy coroner, was a triple fatality, 4 if you count the dog, on I-5. 4 girls all got killed. Every one of them had kids. They were in their 20s, and I had to call their families and explain to them what happened. And I tried to quit. I told the sergeant, I said, Barry, I quit. We're standing on the freeway. I said, I quit. I'm done. Fuck this. And he's like, not till you get done with this report. It's just that humor. Yeah. And he was like, no. And I got it done, but it was like, I never want to do this again. And it was just wearing me out, wearing my hair out. I was overweight. My blood pressure was like 170. And I was becoming that hateful, angry person again. Mm-hmm. So I took my ass back to therapy, number one. And what's funny is the first therapist I got, his name was the same name as the person who abused me as a kid. And I was like, sorry, bro, this ain't gonna work because I want to fucking choke you. He was like,
We
no
have
worries,
to
man.
find another.
So I found another guy, and I'm telling him, going with, because I kind of have to give this backstory of my life and how I got to where I am. And this dude, after a couple sessions, goes, you know what, man? Goes, just listen to hear me out. He goes, you're pretty well adjusted for everything you've been through in your life. And I was like, thank you. Because I lost my brother when I was 6 years old. He was 10 years older than me. He got killed in a car wreck. He was my hero. So it's just like, I just had, my life is hard, chaos. But when I tell my wife, when she's like, oh, you just don't understand, like, I said, no, I said, hey, my life's hard, but that's my life. Mm-hmm. Your life, you're living, that's the hardest life you've ever lived.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if you're Warren Buffett. Guess what? Warren Buffett's life, that's the hardest one he's ever lived. Mm-hmm. So I don't judge people off what they've been through or try and compare what scars, whatever, because it doesn't compare. Your life is the hardest life you've ever been through. It's just how you come out the other side.
Mm-hmm. And it's also, it has to do with traumas too. How you can handle your trauma compared to another person. Because when you say, the worst thing that something's ever happened to somebody, that is literally the worst thing that's ever happened to them. Now, it may not be compared to your trauma. You can't put traumas together and judge them because everybody computes, but that's the difference between those who can and those who can't. That's why, and you have to know your limitations. When you've hit that peak, it's done. Just like me, whenever I say, I can't join the military. I know me. I know how I am. So therefore, I don't attempt it because that would be my peak. That would be it wouldn't be good. I know it. But some people, they need it. Sometimes it's a special. You're like a snowflake, babe. Is you go out there and it's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Is you went to the military, you did I bet you lived more in a military life than what most of these millennials have done in the 10 years of whatever. You accomplished that. You wanted to do cage fighting, you accomplished that. You wanted to be a cop, you rode that ride until it was out of gas and you're done. You didn't want to do that anymore. You didn't like Orland. You were like, you know what? Nothing against you peeps, but I'm out. And you left. That in itself, though, what I'm trying to say is there will never be another person like you. But I'm hoping.
I hope not. I fucking hope not. Poor bastard.
You know what? I hope that what people get out of this is they realize that you literally can flip off and say, fuck you, to people that try and pigeonhole you and put you into this. You are a square peg in a round hole, and you make no bones about it. You are not going to conform to anybody except yourself, and you survived it.
Except for my wife, if she cooks me nice food.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
It's I don't take no for an answer. No. And hell have no fury if you tell me I can't fucking do it. Mm-hmm. Like people say I couldn't learn lineman school. You're too big. You're too old. You're beat up. I said, I don't care. And I did it. Graduated with straight A's. First time in my life. Worked my ass off. And then COVID happened. Fucked up everything for hiring. I got into the safety thing, working for PG&E out there in California as a contractor. Did good. Worked my ass off. I was a safety guy. People don't like safety guys. I don't like safety guys. My life motto, safety third. Like, but I worked my ass off to learn. Like today, I was in class and we were doing something. And I was like, oh, if that guy does that like this or like this, and he switches this up, it'll be easier. And I'm not saying I know everything. I've just seen it. And this apprentice goes, this other apprentice, he's a young kid. He's like, how do you know that? And I said, I've seen it. He goes, oh yeah, you were a safety guy, right? He goes, I bet you've seen a lot of line work. I said, man, I was a student in the game. I said, they just paid me a lot of money to stand around and learn. And I tried to help people. I tried to keep people safe and do the best job I could. I wasn't a dick, unless I had to be. I try and live by the rules of my brain is hurting tonight with movies. Roadhouse. Be nice. Be nice. Just be nice. That's all you have to do is be nice until it's time not to be nice.
Yep.
And that's how I live now. I try and be nice. I try and exhaust all avenues of being nice, and then I won't be nice. And then I turn into the Hulk. When my wife calls me, my eyes turn green, and I get hulkish, and then get out of the way. But
I'm the
I
same
was
exact way.
and then people told me you'll never get an apprenticeship. Hell, PG&E told me by denying me like 40 times, you never get an apprenticeship. You're never gonna make it. Nobody wants to hire you. People, I don't know if people were saying that, but that's what I felt like the world was saying to me when I kept getting rejected for these jobs. Kept getting rejected before without even getting an interview. I'm just like, I refuse. I turned down 2 different job offers to be a safety guy, to become a career safety guy. I said, no, I'm going to be a journeyman motherfucking lineman someday. And that's the saying is JMFL. They're MFJL. It's this company that make hats, motherfucking journeyman lineman. Because you're the top of the top. Literally and figuratively. You're the top of the heap when it comes to the trades. And I said, no, I'm going to do this. I will not be denied. And that's like every day I show up to work. And I don't have the funnest job right now in line work. I'm an apprentice on a service crew. It's not fun. It's not sexy. It's not cool. You don't do it for the gram. I guarantee that. But I work my ass off.
Yeah.
I show up. I have a good attitude. I'm happy to be there. And even my journeyman who I work with every day, who's in charge of me, he's like, man, you just love being here. I said, every day. Every day. I love it. I tried to, my whole family has been in construction, and I tried to fight it for a long time. And then it finally realized, like, I need to go into construction. I just had to find my thing, and this is my thing. And I love it. I'm gonna keep working every day as hard as I can, learning as much as I can, and keep power on, turn the power back on when it goes out. And that's what I love doing. I've had some great mentors. With a guy who's been on your podcast, Dave Kelly, was one of my big mentors. Love the guy to death. It's just what I love. It's just my passion. And for a long time, I just thought I couldn't do it. Law enforcement, it's kind of funny. I realized about week 3, I wasn't going to do that forever. I was on FTO. Yeah, I was on FTO, field training, with somebody who we both know. And I was like, fuck this shit. Week 3, I was like, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life.
I don't want to play anymore.
Nah, and it's like what in class it is funny when people say like, oh, so you were in the military? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you were law enforcement? I'm like, yeah. Like, you were a firefighter? I'm like, yeah, the hero shit just ain't for me. I found out.
It kind of reminds me of the guy that, he worked all his life being the Green Beret that ended up becoming a sous chef. Like that's just what they wanted to do. They want to play with food and they want to make it pretty, but yet they could kill you with a knife. Like that's just, but they want it, that everything has to be perfect, and then they like it. Well, but I mean it. I truly mean it. You have lived a whole entire, you've lived your 9 lives in just one. I mean, that's insane. That is absolutely insane. How you can
some days it gets daunting.
Oh, I bet.
Some days, I mean, I still struggle. I just got in a funk, and I was just angry, and I don't know why. Something happens. I see something. That's why I don't watch the news. I stay far away from the news. And on social media, if you don't make me laugh or entertain me, you just go. You post too much political shit, either side. I don't care. You go. It's just not my thing. I don't care.
Most of the time it's me posting shit about me farting in Walmart. I mean, that is literally, I'm like, guess what? Blew ass again on aisle 9. That was me. If you walked through that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, like I said, I still struggle. I'm not happy-go-lucky all the time. I struggle. I just struggle every day. And I got 2 kids. I love them to death. They're my reason for being alive, and I love them. My boy's a fucking maniac like me. He just wants to win and wants to ride dirt bikes, and I just love it. And we butt heads because we're a couple fucking stubborn old mules. He's just like me. And my daughter's just the sweetest thing in the world, which I love. Um, she's a pill.
Mhm.
She's getting to that like feisty age already. But you know, I never thought I'd have this in life. I never expected to be 33 years old. You know, I didn't. There was never like when people ask me what you would be when you grow up. I'm like, I don't know, fucking dead. Like I never expected to be alive this long. And so I look at it like this now. Every day's a damn gift to me because I never expected to have this. That's why it took me so long to figure out what I want to be when I grow up because I never
You
thought
just
about it as a kid.
you
You
just got
know,
to go through them and just figure out which one. And if you decide that you want to try all the chocolates, you should. You know, you
yeah.
only live once. You only go one time. But I knew that this was going to be a good one. And it's not because of the trauma, and it's not because of the strife, and it's not because of the it. I don't know if you remember this or not, but I sent you a message whenever we were originally supposed to do this. This was pre-COVID. And I said, hey, just send me a list of shit that you want to talk about and things that you don't, and you're like, I'm an open book. I really don't care. I don't give two fiddlers part. I will do whatever I want. And I said, what is one thing that you want to talk about? Or what is one thing that you think that we would, be able to discuss? And you sent me a list and there was only one thing on there. And it says how I want to die in Afghanistan. How I wish I would have died in Afghanistan. And I went, motherfucker, this is going to be, I I realize you had to go through this because there are going to be people that are watching this. And I want everyone to know that I will pin a bunch of numbers down on the bottom. I do every single time. Um, that you had to go through this shit so that way people can learn from you. And it's not learning from your mistakes. It's from learning from your life. There is a difference because I don't think that there are mistakes made. I think it's just life and its experiences. And if somebody can learn from that, then that's what we need to do. That's what we need to focus on. So,
People have asked me, if you could go back and change anything, would you? And I'm like, it'd be cool not to have been abused as a kid. It'd have been cool not to have your whole childhood stolen from you.
mhm,
It'd be cool not to have to live with those thoughts every day.
mhm,
But would I be sitting where I'm at right now with my two beautiful kids, my amazing wife, who is the most patient person with me on the fucking planet, who I love, who is amazing? Um, no. Who knows? I'd be some probably jackass kid making fucking TikTok videos. I don't know. I wouldn't be me.
mhm,
I wouldn't, I wouldn't be me. And that's why sometimes I'm like, no, I wouldn't change nothing.
mhm.
I crashed a street bike at 110 miles an hour and walked away. And I'm like, I love that street bike. I love that bike. Oh, it was gorgeous. But it's a cooler story. I wouldn't still have that street bike, but I still have that story, and it's I've lost a lot of people in my life. I've seen a lot of death. Um, I've seen a lot of good stuff. I was told a long time ago I wouldn't have kids because of some stuff I have going on, with me physically.
Mhm.
I was told I wouldn't be able to have kids, um, but I did. I
See?
too, and they're perfect and healthy and crazy, and so every day's a gift. You just
Absolutely.
gotta, and then you always gotta remember this: nobody cares. Work
Nobody
harder.
cares. Work harder. And I
It's
love it.
they got two of my favorite sayings: nobody cares, work harder, and must be nice.
Mhm.
People started hating on Rogan and Haynes because I went to this amazing, bastion of the last great place to hunt in California, the Tejon Ranch, and they paid like 30 grand to shoot this big elk. And like, must be nice, and then, yeah, it must be nice to work my fucking ass off to get where I am,
Mhm.
and that's what I'm like. Must be nice. And every time I see them, like I buy something because I've worked my ass off to get here. I'm like, must be nice. It
Mhm.
sure fucking is
Yep.
because I shouldn't be here.
Mhm.
Statistically, I shouldn't be here.
But
And
I
I
think
am.
that's the difference is there is two types of people. And this is a motto in our household and in when I was growing up. There are two types of people. Those are that retreat and those that reload. And that's exactly it. And it must be nice, but those are the ones that are saying it are the ones that retreated. the ones that reloaded and went through the freaking muck and the shit and being told so many times that you're nothing but a piece of shit or you'll never make anything. And now you're looking at them and you're going, welcome to my world, motherfucker. Take a seat. And if you're lucky, I'll give you some crumbs. So there's nothing wrong for that, and never apologize.
I told my wife recently, I said, I had an 8th grade teacher because I learned differently. They put me in special ed classes when I was in school because I just learned differently and I didn't like school. This special ed teacher who's supposed to be there to help kids told me I'd never be nothing. I would never make anything of myself. In 8th grade, this girl told me this. This lady told me this. And I never forgot that. And now I'll make more money in half a year than she will in 2.
Yep.
So it's all right with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. I just keep on living. LIVIN. That's all I do.
Well, hey, I cannot begin to thank you enough for coming on. I can't believe that it took you moving out of state in order for you to be on here. But you got to admit, it's a lot of goddamn fun, and it's amazing. And also it's good therapy. It's good therapy for you, and it's excellent therapy for me because I get to talk to everybody and I get to have a good time with it. But I want you to make me a promise that we will do this again.
100%. Absolutely.
Good. I want to do this again, and I cannot wait to see how this goes, because I think in a year from now, I think you're going to be like, dude, I got these dumbass people below me, but man, am I having a lot of fun. But anyway, I want to thank Mike Branson for coming in and hanging out with me. As always, you guys can catch me on Facebook and Instagram. You guys can always message me on noconditions2020@gmail.com if you guys have any questions, concerns, or if you just want to chat and tell me how much I suck or whatever you want to do. This is available on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify. You guys get on there, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to like and share the page so you guys never miss out on another episode of No Conditions again. Mike, I love you, buddy. I am your number one fan, and you give that wife of yours and those 2 babies my love. I miss you guys something fierce, and I can't wait to do this again. All right, Absolutely. Guys, we'll see you soon. Take care.